So Josh, the Nintendo Switch 2 has sort of been announced. Well, they're going to make an announcement this year, but it's going to be like March time.
Yeah, this fiscal year, so any time before March 2025.
Yeah, which is interesting because I honestly thought they might be bringing it out actually this year.
Well, they might still do. I mean, it would make sense to...
Well, no, they're not. They're not, because they said that there's not going to be any news about the Switch 2 until around about the next fiscal year, around about March time. A lot of people have been saying that maybe because they want to reach the PS2 sales, because like the PS2 sold like something ridiculous, like 135 million consoles, and the Switch is actually quite close in terms of meeting or taking over that title of how many consoles have been sold.
And is the PS2 currently the reigning champion?
Yeah, the PS2 is the current reigning champion of the highest consoles ever sold.
That makes sense. Apart from the fact that I did see something where Switch sales have slowed down since they made that announcement about a month ago.
Yeah,
but it's only been a month, and we've still got all of summer and the Christmas period to get through. So there's still plenty of time for people to go out and buy Switch consoles. It's probably nothing to do with the announcement, if there is any slump in sales of the Switch console at the moment anyway. So.
I can't see why you would want to buy a Switch console now, because it doesn't really make sense. You might as well just wait.
Well, do you know something? I hear you saying... I hear you talking for the gaming community as if it is one singular gaming mind. As I was editing our last episode, and you kept saying, "Oh, but why would you do this? You know that you're going to do this. Like, why would you buy a game at full price? Because you know you can just get it on sale." There's plenty of people who buy things when they're not on sale up front, and there are plenty of people. You know, the market's big enough. So you're not the type of person who's going to buy no, actually, you are exactly the sort of person who would buy an end-of-life gaming console, because that's when they are the cheapest. And
I'm not sure, because I was thinking about that, and I've never owned a Switch, and I was thinking maybe this is a good time to pull the plug, and they are still like £230 with, I think you get like maybe one or two games with that. That's still quite, and that was like a discount, like that was a special like deal. But to me, that's still quite a lot of money for something that came out like back in 2017. That's like, it's ancient now in terms of.
But it's not about the technology. It's about the games. So if you want to play Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom at the moment, right, I know you can do the Wii U for Breath of the Wild, but at the moment, the Switch or the Switch OLED or the Switch Lite, they're the only ways to play it. So, and I'm not saying that £240 is a good price for a Switch console. I think, what were they, $280 without a game brand new or something? Is that their original recommended retail price?
I remember.
Or was it higher?
I remember it being it was like 270, 260.
Oh, okay, I'm 20 quid out, but like, yeah, but roughly, like we're saying 200, like the upper 200 without a game versus 240 with maybe a game included. So they're kind of getting it. It technically costs less than £200, but if you can't buy it without a game, it still costs more. But so you can buy it for like £200. It's just the accountancy games that they kind of play. But you don't have to buy a new one. You could buy a second-hand one. People might be.
And to be fair, I think they were selling the OLED model as well, which is a better screen. This particular.
Oh, was that £240 for the Switch OLED plus a game? That's not the worst price for. I know what you're saying about the architecture, the CPU and the performance isn't great, but you aren't paying for a 7-year-old console at that point. You're paying for the quote-unquote mid-cycle refresh, which isn't quite so bad. You do get a game as well. But like I said, you're not the only person in this market. There are plenty of people, particularly with, yet another Christmas season coming between now and the potential announcement. Like, that would be the thing, is if they announce it before Christmas, you might find that no one buys Switches for Christmas. If they announce it in January, well, people have already bought all their Switches for Christmas presents and everything, so that might be a reason to announce or not announce it at any particular time. There's people like you and me who are kind of hardcore gamers. We've got more than one games console. We've bought games consoles for multiple generations, got PC gaming, all that kind of stuff. I'm not saying other people don't care about gaming, but there are hardcore gamers who really care about gaming, and then there's the slightly more casual crowd, and then there's just children. The parents who are buying a Switch so their child can play Minecraft with their friends. Parents aren't necessarily as price sensitive as teenagers might be, particularly for a Switch. I mean, like we say, it's less than £300 to get into it. And yeah, I mean, think about Black Friday sales, Christmas sales. You could potentially get a bundled Switch and a game for less than £200 by that point, and that would just tidy them over until the Switch 2 comes out, because those people aren't probably going to be buying the Switch 2 immediately anyway.
Yeah. Well, they're just, like you say, they're just, if they got like a child, or and that child's like, I want to play Minecraft or Mario, they're just like, okay, yeah, buy that. So it makes sense. I suppose I want to talk about the actual Switch 2 itself. What do you expect it to be? Do you expect it to be like a 4K beast of a machine, or something that's going to be... Because everyone's like dream would be if it's as good as like a PlayStation 5 or an Xbox Series X, but that's just not realistic, is it?
It all comes down to what the form factor is, doesn't it?
Of the handheld, yeah.
Yeah, if it's a handheld, or whether it's something a bit more.
Oh, it's definitely a handheld. Why would you switch up? Why would you switch up the concept?
No pun intended there.
Yeah.
Because there's so many people who literally never use the Switch handheld.
No.
You could definitely go back to the Wii U style, where you have a better performing gaming system with a remote screen for your handheld. But the main focus is for people who really want to have it on the TV, as well as having something that's basically more akin to a Steam Deck. And then you can just expand via a USB-C connection to a docking station or what have you. So you could, if I were Nintendo, which I'm not, but if I were Nintendo, I would have two consoles. I'd have the Switch Lite, which could still dock to any USB-C docking station to HDMI TV or whatever. You could have your Nintendo branded Switch dock as well, but you'd have your Switch Lite, Switch 2 Lite, and then you can have your Switch 2 Pro, which is basically just a Wii U but for the Switch. Because I think the Wii U concept could still work, but there's plenty of people like me and my wife, we literally almost never play the Switch as a handheld thing. It's always plugged into a TV. And at that point, you're wasting components, you're wasting money, you're wasting resources. There's a lithium-ion battery on this boat that could explode at any time. That's just kind of unnecessary. Would be nice to get rid of that, not have to worry about battery degradation, just little things like that. So there might be enough market for two versions of the Switch. And my pet peeve is the Switch 2. Absolutely cannot stand the naming convention of the Switch 2. I will be so disappointed if it is called the Switch 2. But if you're going to call it the Switch 2, have two devices, similar but serving slightly different markets. It's not like they don't already have that. In the current lineup, you've got the Switch Lite, which is only handheld. You've got the regular Switch, which is handheld and docking. And then you've got the Switch OLED, which is fancy handheld and docking.
So you basically want what they had with the 3DS. And then, so they had a handheld division, and then they had a console division.
No, because the 3DS and the Game Boy, the GameCube, they couldn't play the same games. Yeah. I'm talking about the same gaming system, the exact same games play on the two devices, but one of them plays it at a battery optimized mode and the other plays it at 4K 30 or 1080/60 on your TV in HDR. And with the Switch Pro, take out the screen, take out the battery, then you can focus. You can put money into those areas, into the more performance areas, potentially.
I don't know about this idea, because I think they're just literally done with having a dedicated console. I think the next Switch is going to be a handheld that will allow you to dock and possibly will be able to do 4K 30 with some games. but it's not going to be a beast. And I definitely don't think they're going to make two versions like they're done with the Xbox, where they've made a Series X and a Series S. Is that what you're kind of trying to suggest that they should do?
Well, okay, so here's my question, right? Nintendo, they like to innovate. Every console they have a gimmick, something happening with them. And if the Switch 2 is the Switch but with more performance, what is the point? Now, maybe they've got a new form factor, a completely new form factor. No. Maybe they've got a new gimmick for the Switch 2. Maybe it's something we've not thought about yet. Maybe it's more VR focused. Don't know. But there's got to be a gimmick. That's literally Nintendo's game when it comes to gaming consoles. And if I was the person in charge of having a gimmick, that would potentially be one. I know it's not quite as gimmicky as the Switch or the Nunchuck, the Wii motion controls, but it's something. It's innovating in some method that would make some kind of sense if you were continuing on the Switch branding. Now, if it's not called the Switch 2 and they've got a brand new brand for it, then yeah, okay, they might do something completely different, a new gimmick, but keep it all in a handheld and dockable, single line variant. And I guess I would be okay with that, but it's trying to guess what Nintendo is up to, isn't it?
I don't think they should come out with any gimmick. I think they should just do what they've been doing and make the new Switch 2 an OLED screen, because majority of Switch owners have purchased the LCD screen, and jumping from the LCD to OLED, that in itself is gonna make a difference. And I think obviously there's gonna be better batteries inside the Switch 2, so you're gonna get more hours of gaming. And like you say, it'd be interesting to see the design. It could be a pretty cool design. And one thing they could do is not actually make two different versions of the Switch 2, like a lower powered spec console or a handheld, and then an upper spec console. What they could do is you would have one handheld that would be quite beefy. Potentially, when in docked mode, they could up the clock speeds.
Doesn't the Switch already do that?
I'm not. I think they potentially do, but they don't go drastic. I thought
you said originally it just goes from 720p to 1080p, which I know isn't.
Well, the screen itself is 720p, so there's no point displaying 1080p on a 720p screen. But I do believe they do up the clock speeds and on docked mode.
Yeah, or essentially it runs at full capacity when it's plugged in, but when it's not plugged in, it kind of underclocks a little bit or something like that, just to preserve battery life. And like you say, you can't run 1080p, so you might as well scale down a bit. But it all sounds very boring. Very boring.
That's why I think they will do, if they had to reach, say, 4K and use, they could have DLSS in terms of trickery on the images.
Yeah, it'd be nice to have DLSS. It'd be nice to have some kind of HDR or ray tracing or something like that.
I don't think you'll have ray tracing.
It just sounds very boring. I'm not saying all game consoles have to be interesting, but historically, Nintendo has come out with some very interesting game consoles.
The thing is, Nintendo always do their own little thing.
Are you going to be happy if the Switch 2 comes out and all they've done is they've made it slightly more performant and they've fixed the drift issues on the Joy-Cons? Would you be happy with that? I don't know that I would.
If it and an OLED
but they've already
screen.
got an OLED screen. What's the point?
Yeah, well,
but not even talking about. But not talking about the innovation in the gimmicks of Nintendo. Where's the innovation at all? All you've done is just put a better chip in it. That's not progress. That's just sticking with the current times. It's like...
Well, yeah. I don't think they have to reinvent the wheel. I think what they're currently doing is major success. Why change it? Just keep doing what you're doing. Put a more beefier.
So the next question is then, if you keep it as it is, will all games be compatible? because that's obviously been a big thing in the past.
Well, this is the thing. Yeah, this is the thing I kind of wanted to talk to you about, because what happened with the Wii U? The Wii U, its hardware was quite under-spec'd. It was probably putting like the PS3 up. You know, that the Wii U and the PS3 was kind of like the same sort of let's say power in terms of.
But it came out with the PS4.
Yeah, so the Wii U is against the PS4 and the Xbox One, and no one was buying the console. So,
but is that because it was a poorly performing console? Was it because it was called the Wii U and people were confused about the marketing? And this is what concerns me about the Switch 2. Now, the Switch 2 might be better because people understand PlayStation 1, 2, 3, 4, and whatever Xbox is doing with their numbering. So it might fare better going Switch and Switch 2 than Wii and Wii U. But you are...
Well,
you've got this history where using the same brand hasn't worked for you in the past. Like, that is such a gamble to take to do that again.
I think what happened in that situation is the Wii was marketed towards casual gamers, and it kind of left the hardcore gamers behind. Their next console they named the Wii U, and the casual gamers were like, what is this? An extension of the Wii? I don't need this. I already have a Wii.
Exactly. Yeah.
But the hardcore gamers knew it was a new console. But with the Switch, I don't think you're going to have that problem. I think everyone in the world is going to understand, there's a Switch, and then there's a Switch 2.
Yeah, it's just one of those things. It's like that. I don't
think they're going to have... The Switch is so popular.
If it was any other console, any other brand, if it was Sony or Microsoft or Xbox, I'd be like, it's not a problem. But it has been a problem for Nintendo in the past. That's the only reason why.
It has.
What ties into it is how the game compatibility is going to be. If all of the Switch games are compatible with Switch 2, then yes, it's one cohesive ecosystem. So obviously new games aren't going to work on the Switch, but if every single Switch game can be played on the Switch 2 without any work no backwards compatibility, it just plays on it, you're going to have a better time. But if it's a different architecture, if there's backwards compatibility required for the Switch, so that it's not actually the same, it's not the same operating system, it's not the same underlying game engines, or however that whole side of it works, that could really bite them on the tail like it did with the Wii U.
Well, they got Yuzu. What more do they want? They already got a Switch emulator, haven't they? Yeah, I'm joking. They can't use it.
Well, they can, actually. You're not wrong. They own the source code. They can emulate. But that's what I mean. It's like, it doesn't matter how they do it, but the difference comes from whether every Switch game can be played on the Switch 2 versus a hand-picked selection. And that's the other thing as well. Is it going to accept Switch carts? Is it going to have carts, or is it going to be all digital?
It's going to be cart.
I don't think so. Have you seen the specs? 256 as the base storage tier. That sounds awfully like it's going to be digital only.
Well, how do you know? Like,
you don't know. It's just a guess. It's just a guess.
That's not confirmed. You don't know. What is that? That must be like a small little SSD in there.
Could be SSD. Could be eMMC.
But I want to touch on what you were talking about earlier about... So the Wii U failed because, it didn't sell very well. And then third party were like, why do I want to make a port of this game to that console when it's not even selling well? And no one's playing it. There's just no point. And then they just got these lousy ports. But with the Switch, third parties were like, wait a minute. This thing is taking off. This thing is selling like crazy. We need to get our games somehow onto this console. And you saw that, like... these incredible ports, like Doom 2017 or 2016. You saw The Witcher 3, like The Witcher 3 on the Switch.
Skyrim.
Skyrim not so much, because Skyrim came out on PS3 and Xbox 360. But still, you see, like there was a lot
of some more mainstream games, some less Nintendo-esque games.
Yeah, and they were making like those games were not. Like, you wouldn't really want to play them. Like, there was a lot of sacrifices that had to be made just to get them onto the Switch. But you could still play them. And that's what the third parties were like, okay, this is actually selling. We need to get our games onto there. And I think it's going to be the same sort of concept here. Like, if the Switch 2 starts taking off and people start buying it, third parties will be on board and are going to say, okay, let's try and figure out how to get our games onto the Switch too.
But the thing is, though, when you said earlier that the Switch is almost at the point where it's going to be the highest selling games console of all time. There's not that many games that have done that port. I mean, you've listed 2 or 3. I've listed 1. And okay, maybe there's 20 or 30 of them or something. But for the 100 million Switch consoles that have been sold, that's not that many games that have been ported from quote unquote real modern gaming consoles to the Switch's more limited hardware. And the thing is, like you say, there's got to be time, money, and effort put into making it work. Some sacrifices that need to be made. But 100 million people—that's a lot of money to actually. That's a whole new. When we were talking about Xbox putting their exclusives on the PlayStation 5, because that's where there's more players, there's more people to sell the game to. 100 million, 130 million, whatever that number is. There's a lot of money on the table there. If it's that lucrative, why aren't there more of these games? I do remember seeing the stories of these games coming through onto the Switch, but it's not every game. They don't have every... Is GTA 5?
No.
Is Red Dead on the Switch? The remaster is...
Red Dead is.
No,
Yeah.
Red Dead 2. Red Dead 2.
No.
If GTA 5 and Red Dead 2 were on the Switch, that says something. Both about Nintendo and the type of games that they're allowing onto their system, and the developers that are coming to the Switch. Now, I did see something about the specs. There's going to be 12 gig of RAM on the new Switch potentially, compared to the current Switch's 4 gigs. So thinking about...
That sounds good.
Yeah, and it's like, well, what can you use 12 gig of RAM for? I mean, presumably that's going to be shared between the GPU and the CPU, so not as much as you could on a PC, but, 4K textures, bigger games, that kind of stuff. You're going to have to pick one or the other, depending on how complex your game is. But Red Dead 2 could come to the Switch too, potentially. GTA 5, GTA 6 could have a Switch version, potentially.
Yeah. And I think it will all depend on if it sells well.
Oh, yeah.
Because developers they'll be keeping an eye on it, and they'll be thinking, right, well...
Well, given the timeline, you could have GTA 6 as one of the launcher games.
No.
Yeah, I mean, you could.
Definitely
Nintendo,
not.
you could. That's between Nintendo and Rockstar.
No.
They can have those conversations.
Well, no, the GTA 6 has mainly been concentrated on these next-gen consoles.
But Nintendo have shown some developers the next console.
Who knows? It potentially could happen, but it's not going to happen on.
I'm not saying it's going to
release.
come out when GTA 6 comes out. I'm saying it might come out when the Switch comes out, which might be different. Although who knows when GTA 6 will come out.
I think it will come out next year. It's coming out next year, and I don't even think GTA. I think GTA 6 will come out after the Switch 2.
Currently,
November.
It's currently sort of November 2025, isn't it, for GTA 6? Presuming it doesn't get... I think that's the current estimated date, but we know it's going to get pushed back.
I thought they said the summer.
Has it already been pushed?
No, the summer of 2025.
But I think we can almost guarantee it will be pushed back to 2026. But potentially, if it comes out summer of 2025, the Switch 2 could come out April or September, just in time for Christmas. And if GTA comes out in the summer and the Switch 2 comes out in September, then GTA could be like, oh, by the way, Nintendo gave us a whole load of money, and here's GTA 6 for the Switch 2.
I don't think it's going to work like that. It's going to take more than a few months to port something like that to a handheld.
But they might already be working on it, that's what I mean. But Nintendo and these companies, they all talk to the developers before the consoles are announced.
Oh, yeah, it's been shown.
That's how, when you see an iPad announcement, and no one knows about this iPad, but... the Microsoft Word has already been designed for the iPad Pro. It's because Apple and Microsoft have been talking behind the scenes for the last 12 to 18 months. Just because we can't see it doesn't mean it's not happening.
Yeah, who knows? They could be, potentially. But I just can't see it, because there's no point saying, all right, they're making the GTA 6 for the next-gen consoles, as well as we're going to be making a Switch port I just can't see it. I can't see that resource being split up like that. I think all resources will be on.
That's where it comes down to Nintendo giving them a load of money, and they would provide the resources to have GTA 6 on the Switch 2, because it is in Nintendo's interest, not Rockstar's, to have GTA 6 on the next version of the Switch. And this is stuff that happens all the time. It's like Apple wanted Spotify on the iPhone platform 10 years ago. They flew out a whole load of iPhone OS engineers to wherever Spotify is, Norway or Sweden, and they spent a month with them and said, right, this is how you build an app, and this is how you get your app onto our platform. Because having Spotify on the iPhone meant that the iPhone was more attractive to people, so people would buy the iPhone instead of an Android, because they could now get Spotify. This is the platform owners do have some kind of responsibility to getting not only first-party games on their platform, but third-party games. And some of it is, here, have two of our engineers, and they're going to build your Rage engine for the Switch 2, so that all of the other work that you're doing that's top secret, it's just going to run on the Switch 2 and you don't have to do any work at all. I don't know the ins and outs of coding. I'm not a programmer, but that could be one way that they do it.
Well, I think, like you say, the Nintendo have already given out dev kits to everyone and shown them how.
I don't think they've given dev kits. I think from what I read is that they've just shown them the systems.
No, there's definitely been dev kits gone out. Definitely. By now, like if we're talking a release of next year, there's going to be an announcement, and then it's going to be a few months, and it's coming out. There's definitely dev kits floating around.
I mean, I read something, and it's only from May, or was it? No, I watched a video. It was an absolutely useless video. It was like everything we know about the Switch 2, and there was nothing in it really, other than a few of the games. But one of the points he brought up was that some devs had touched the Switch 2, but they hadn't seen it. So it's like they had felt it, so maybe they had felt the form factor, the Joy-Cons, that kind of stuff, but they hadn't been allowed to see it. So that says to me, and if that's in May, okay, I know we're now a month ahead, so dev kits may have gone out by now, but at the same time, that doesn't sound like dev kits have quite gone out or will be going out immediately. It depends who those devs were. I mean, they might not have been, big trustworthy companies. They might have just been semi-trustworthy companies. They were unnamed sources, so.
Yeah, so the other thing I wanted to discuss is we discussed about the Wii U and how the Wii U kind of it was a good console, but it ultimately did fail. And what happened is that most of the games that came out on the Wii U got a new version on the Switch, got like a remastered or a collection or like an XL version of the game. So this time around, they're not going to have that. They're not going to have games that they can just re-release. Like if there's like because what was happening is at some points they were seeing that the Switch was selling well, and then they were like, okay, there's going to be a dry point at this month, and there's going to be a dry point at that month. What we can do is we can get these games that originally came out on the Wii U, re-release them, and then because no one played them and we still think they're great games, and we're going to chuck in all the DLC for them, great. This time they're not going to have that. They're not going to have any games that potentially didn't sell very well, and that they can just chuck on there, because like you say, if it's backwards compatible, that's not gonna.
Yeah, I was gonna say that basically answers one of the questions I had earlier. So the reason they did that for the Wii U games on the Switch is because previously you couldn't play those games on a Switch. You couldn't just download them from the store or put the game disc into the Switch because those games weren't compatible from the Wii U to the Switch. Yeah. But if Switch games are compatible on the Switch 2 with no work from the developer or the customer, and all they need to do is go to the Nintendo eShop and download the game that they've already purchased, or purchase the game that they haven't yet purchased and then download it, then yeah, the platforms are going to be similar enough that they won't need to do that. That's not necessarily a bad thing. Like, backwards compatibility in some, in whatever fashion, it is a good thing. It might have sounded from my previous comments about it that I wasn't in favour of it. Like, by all means, I totally am. It's just the implications that has on the other aspects of the Switch or the Switch 2 brand or the architecture behind it and everything, that it just has me pause for concern on. Thinking about game preservation, it's a good thing. It's brilliant that if you can just buy a Switch 2, because actually think about it, right? If you coming from a Wii or a Wii U and you go out in 2017, 2015 to buy your Switch, your first Switch, recommended retail price is £280 or £320. I can't remember, it might have been north of £300 at that point. But it's like, you spend your £300 on your Switch console. You've got no games. I don't even think it came with like Wii Sport or anything. So then you've got to spend another £50 to buy the game. There's no Xbox Game Pass for Nintendo at that point, so you can't just spend £300 and another £10 for any game you want to play. No, you've actually got to pay full price for these games because there's nothing on the second-hand market at this time. So you're £350 in and you've got one video game. Now, if the Switch 2 can play all of your Switch games, particularly the ones that you purchase digitally, well, you can spend £280 or £350 or £420, whatever the cost of this new console. Yes, that's a lot of money. Put it on your credit card, pay it on finance, get your parents to buy it for you, whatever. But until the next Super Mario game comes out, the next Legend of Zelda game comes out, the next Animal Crossing, you can play everything that you previously purchased. You've got 20 games in your download library that you can just download and play straight away. Yes, they're not going to take advantage of all of the new features. Some of them might. Maybe if there's auto HDR, then maybe Animal Crossings or Super Mario Kart, something, that might look really nice with the super bright red, the super high contrast on Rainbow Road. Who knows? And that might seem like a better deal in 2025 than it did in 2017.
But the argument is that this is what's happened with, say, like the Xbox Series X and the PlayStation 5, where you buy the console and there's not really been a lot of games that have come out initially that are heavy hitters.
Yeah, but they had the problem they had was COVID. Like the pandemic just ruined everything.
That's true.
Nintendo don't have that problem.
Well, let's say then, let me just say this. I don't think that they are going to be able to bring out the games that they were bringing out for the Switch, because a lot of the games, they were like, okay, here's this Wii U title that didn't sell well. Let's just port it to the Switch. They're not going to have that because, like you say, hopefully it is backwards compatible. And if it's not backwards compatible, who's going to buy the same game twice? It's kind of ridiculous for a little bit of extra features. So if it is backwards compatible, you're like, okay, I've got all of these games I can play. But then the games that do come out eventually, they're not going to be, I don't think they're going to be, there's not going to be a number of selectable games that you'll be able to play for the first year of the console's life. I think it's just going to be like a super Switch. So it's just going to be this just feels like a more powerful version of the Switch. And that kind of worries me a little bit.
This is where it's Nintendo's responsibility to make sure that the game releases at a time where there are games ready to play on launch. That's the whole point of launch titles is so that you can play this fancy new hardware and with all its fancy new features. Nintendo make their own games. They've got their own game studios. They've got a new Mario game potentially on its way. It's their responsibility to make sure that game is ready for whenever the Switch 2 is ready.
See what it could. Well, it's definitely not going to be a new Zelda game.
But why not? Well, I didn't say Zelda. I said it's going to be Mario. The rumors are that it's a new Mario game. New 3D Mario game.
But what they were saying 2 or 3 years ago is that the Mario Kart is not going to be, it's not going to have a new game. It's just going to, basically, they're going to take Mario Kart 8 and just add DLC.
Yeah, they'll get new tracks.
Exactly.
But that's not the Mario game I'm talking about. I'm talking about something like Super Mario Odyssey.
Oh, okay.
Not Mario Kart. Mario.
Yeah. So,
just Mario. You know what Mario... Do you know what Mario is? The original game, Mario?
Mario 64?
I've never played it. I've only ever played Mario Kart.
Oh, really?
I've never played a single Mario game. I've played Mario Kart and I've played Mario Party. But the rumours are that there's a Mario game, a Mario 3D platformer or something like that in development at the moment. So theoretically,
I could see it.
that game, whatever that turns out to be, that should come out. And why would you not? Why would you not have your main IP that is beloved around the world? We've just had a film. There'll probably be another film. Why would you not have that game come out with the Switch 2? That, like, you're literally making the hardware. You're mostly in control of the games that come out of this. I know there's going to be like development hell and crunch and all that kind of stuff. Like, you can't perfectly align everything, but the main people that know what's going on with the hardware and the software is Nintendo. They should be able to marry the two. And they should also have other games, smaller games, not just Mario, but they should have other stuff going on. Like you say, with the Mario Kart, they might just say, oh, by the way, Mario is coming to 4K 60 HDR with ray tracing, and you can jump around the world and everything. And also, we've got 8 new tracks. Rainbow Road for the 4th time in HDR.
Are you going to buy it again?
But that's only for... Well, no, you're not going to buy it again, because I don't know if you're aware, but those tracks are only available to people who pay for Nintendo Online. So I've got Super Mario 8 Deluxe. I can only play 64 tracks. That came with the game when it was released for the Switch. Or maybe the Wii U. If I pay £20 a year for Nintendo Switch Online, then I get access to all of these new tracks that they've been releasing here and there. So it's not actually the base game, it's the base game plus extra. I don't think it's DLC. It might be DLC, but I'm pretty sure it's to do with the online stuff.
Okay. I still think, like, how they're going to do something like that, where they would have to make you pay for it again somehow and then pay the online to get the new tracks. I don't know. But yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Like, the online thing is an ongoing cost to the players, so that's why they're adding the new tracks there. So that would be okay to use your existing Switch game, because you're also having to pay an annual fee to get access to the other tracks. So yeah, it would be... I mean, they're adding new tracks to it anyway, I think, every so often. I think it's happened more than once, but don't quote me on that, because I've literally never played... I've not paid for Nintendo Online since they started doing that. So
you've never paid for it? You've never gone online on the Switch?
No. I've not paid for Nintendo Switch Online since they started doing the additional tracks, the additional circuits. So we had Nintendo Online in 2020 to play Animal Crossing Online.
Oh, really? Okay.
But then they brought out the tracks, the new circuits. That came out in like 2021, 2022. So that was after we had stopped our subscription. So I don't exactly know.
I just wanted to ask you, like, I don't have a Switch and I've never paid for the online services. The only time I've used the online services was back in the Wii, which was quite bad in terms of, like, trying to get...
Well, I mean, it was...
Well, like, getting your friend...
Wasn't the great days of the internet back then, was it?
Like,
so...
the Xbox 360 was out, the PS3 was out, and I'm not talking about, like, the online functionality. Like, the online was fine. It was in terms of, like, having your friends, like, trying to invite your friend into into the same game session, and you have like this online ID, and it felt like you had to write it down.
Yeah, it's like 20-digit long code that still exists on the Switch.
Oh my god, they have got to do something about...
There might be some easier ways of doing it, but I think that ID system still exists.
Oh my god, that's terrible. It's like the original Xbox has a better friend system.
But like I said, like, we had this...
I'm not even joking.
I'm not defending it, but we had this in 2020. They may have changed it since then.
Oh man, I swear, like, if they have that, they have really got to update their online functionality, like friend requests, chatting to people. This was...
Well, that's the thing, is that the Switch has no online communication capability. You can't... If you want to do like an Xbox game party on the Switch, you have to download the app on your iPhone or your Android phone and use that, which is absurd. So because the thing is, right,
yeah,
think
you might
about
as well just use Discord or...
No. The problem is, right, you've got to wear one pair of headphones to play your Switch, and you've got to wear a second pair of headphones to hear your friends.
Oh, for crying out loud.
I don't know if you've heard about physics, right, but you can only fit one pair of headphones on your head.
How could this console sell 120...
I know. Well, because exclusives, gimmicks, and people love Nintendo for some stupid reason.
I don't know. I just don't know. We're going to have so many Nintendo fans killing us.
I was going to say, there's probably more fanboyism for Nintendo than there is for Sony and Xbox combined. Half of them don't even own a modern console. They're probably still yammering on about the GameCube and whatever came before that, the N64. I might have to do that last section.
I think we've lost. You're going to lose all.
Everyone's going to
We're
murder
going
us.
to lose all our fans. all two of them. No, but yeah, it would just be, especially it's a paid service. I know it's
Do you know something? There's something in that, and it's a thread that's been weaving throughout the conversation we've had tonight. But a lot of the stuff that I'm expecting from Nintendo for the next Switch console, I wouldn't expect Sony or Microsoft to do them for their next versions, for their next consoles. I only expect weirdness from Nintendo because Nintendo have always come with weird consoles. There's no common thread between any console from one to the next, apart from the Wii U. But everything else, you go from, well, the NES and the Super SNES were, I'm not talking about backwards compatibility, but what I mean is, like, you got the NES, you got the Super NES, like, they're quite similar. But then you go to the N64, completely different. Then you go to the GameCube, completely different. Then you go to the Wii, completely different. Each of these consoles have been completely different from the previous thing. The Wii U is a slight upgrade from the Wii, but it's different. Then you go to the Switch, completely different. And if we go to Switch 2, and it's basically just the Switch, but better graphics, that's what I mean by it's boring. There's no passion. It's just boring. I'm quite happy when Xbox go boring, 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 and everything's basically the same. Sony, boring, boring, slightly weird thing with the PS3, then boring, boring. That's quite good. Really good for backwards compatibility. Great. Very little innovation. Not too much when you go from one controller to the next controller to the other controller to the next controller. Quite nice. Nintendo, they're just bizarre. Like, the first two controllers were basically the same, just these horrible squares that you're just not ergonomic to hold. But then, what the hell was that with the N64? The GameCube was quite good, and then they got rid of it, chucked it away. What we got now? We got a stick and a nunchuck. They were really good. Oh, and then they got rid of it. Now we got Joy-Cons. They're really shit because they keep breaking. This is what I mean. There's no consistency. That's not a bad thing if you lean into it. If you lean into it, it's not a bad thing. And it would be so boring if they just do the Switch 2. That's why I want them to not do the Switch 2. I want them to do a whole new console. The whole new console could be a handheld gaming thing, but I want there to be a gimmick. And I want the gimmick to not be, it's got Joy-Con. I want there to be a new gimmick. But I do want it, I do want there to be backwards compatibility. Like, I do think that's still important, but if it's not necessarily what we expect from Nintendo. So I would be slightly bored if that's all they do. I want them to do more.
Well, let me just say that the Joy-Cons on the Switch do have motion controls built in.
So does the PS5. Sure, does the Xbox One doesn't, I don't think. But I know the Joy-Cons have got motion control. But
he was comparing like the Wii. Oh no, to be fair, you were comparing the Wii U to the Switch.
But the motion control on the Joy-Cons compared to the Wii are really bad.
I never used them, so yeah.
It's not good. And I know, the technology is different. So the Wii had the external light bar, whereas the Joy-Cons just have a built-in accelerometer.
Oh, okay.
But the Wii was, using that console, using the hand on the screen, it was so easy to use. Literally, elderly people could use the Wii. They could do Sudoku, they could do their maths, their brain training stuff. Like, I think my granddad played the Wii, but he wouldn't be able to use the Switch because it's just, it works completely differently. It's back to the old controller arrows and D-pads and everything. And if you try to use the Joy-Con in a handheld manner, it's just not that responsive.
Okay.
It's not that great.
I know what Nintendo have to do to make you happy.
To make me happy? All right.
Yeah, to make you happy right now. I know what they're going to do.
Bearing in mind, we didn't buy a Switch until it was like 3 or 4 years old.
What they're going to do? They're not going to do any handheld console and no console, sort of. They are actually just going to come out with a VR headset. That's what you want. It sounds like you just want a gimmick.
How did that work out for them last time?
Yeah, very badly. Back in the 90s, wasn't it?
What was that? What was it called? The Nintendo Red? The Red Boy?
Yeah,
Oh, it's completely gone out of my mind.
yeah, I know about that. Yeah, people know. Basically made people like ill, didn't it, or something? It was like Mario Tennis or something.
It was a nice attempt at something incredibly futuristic, but did not go well.
Well,
all right, anything else?
No, I think that pretty much wraps it up. I am definitely looking forward to seeing it. But the thing about Nintendo, and this is no like saying a bad thing, but generally, even now, like the Switch is quite expensive, and the games are still quite expensive. So for me to get a Nintendo Switch 2, I'm probably I'm the person who actually be looking at the Switch and seeing if I can pick up some games on the cheap, while people there might be people that'll be like, we'll get to a stage where maybe if it isn't backwards compatible, they're like, okay, what I can do is I can sell my Switch and sell all of my games, and then all I have to do is spend 100 quid or 150 quid then to get the Switch 2. And some people will do that. And then if people start doing that, then the Switch prices will go lower and lower because they got so much second-hand copies of these games. So yeah, there will be a point where it will slowly go down. Eventually, there'll become another point where it will slowly go back up.
Well, I was going to say the problem you've got is how popular they're going to be, and like I said, Joy-Con drift. And the batteries are going to die. In 10 years' time, there might not be that many Switches. There might be 50 million instead of 130, and that will push the prices up. Now, that is where you get people with, third-party repairers, and they could, dismantle them. Be like, do you want a Switch with a screen and battery, or do you want one that you're just going to plug into your TV? And then you can basically get, a 3D printed hard case, and then just sell a parted Switch. Yeah, you're going to have to sell it for more because there's time and effort gone into that, but it might be what you need to do with a Switch in the future because, you've got lithium batteries don't last forever. They are prone to expansion and spontaneous combustion. And the Joy-Cons, you've got third-party controllers, which, if you're not going handheld, you'd be using a Pro Controller or something else anyway, but that's actually a good idea that I've just had. That could be a good a small side earning business venture that someone might be able to have. Thank you for listening to Screen Bytes. Follow us in your podcast app or subscribe on YouTube.